Greetings and welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ plus authors. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is David Jackson Ambrose. Hello, David.
Hi, Anita, and hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, thanks for being here. It's great to talk with you. It really is. Been looking forward to this.
Same here.
So let's jump right in and talk about what you've been doing, David. I want to get into your first published novel, which is State of the Nation. And
Yes.
that was a Lambda Literary finalist when it was published in 2019. And I'm telling you, that is really quite a welcoming to the gay literary world. To be a Lambda Literary finalist. So how did that feel, and how was that moving forward from that?
I have to say it was pretty surreal, when I checked in for notifications about the outcome of the awards.
Mm-hmm.
I kept checking and going back in thinking that maybe I had imagined it or I had misread it. So I kept checking. It was very surreal.
Oh, bet. Yeah.
And a very exciting, time, getting to participate in the award show and being included with such a vast array of talented people was a very great way to launch into the book world.
Heck yeah. You came out
Yeah.
fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very good thing actually for me because, writing can be a very solitary sort of existence.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I think I needed that validation to tell me that my writing was significant and impactful because a lot of times there's doubt, you don't know who's reading and you're just praying that your book is getting into the hands of people that it makes sense to. So it was really very significant to have that validation right out the gate.
Yeah, that's so true. It's a solitary activity, and you don't always hear from people. You don't always receive feedback, right? So,
Right.
that is super nice to know that, what you set out to accomplish was accomplished, and it hit home. Like you had a grand slam with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's fantastic. So, tell us about, like, what's the premise of State of the Nation, and tell us about the characters.
Well, this probably sounds a little bit strange or maybe even superfluous, but you know how the Seinfeld show, their premise was that it was a show about nothing.
Yeah.
Uh, to a degree, State of the Nation was a book about nothing, sort of written just, you know, following along with a group of three friends as they just navigated their day-to-day existence through a suburb of the Philadelphia area, like Norristown. So these characters were ranging from ages 15 to 18 with various levels of gender identity and sexuality, um, and kind of working class to impoverished. So some of them, one of the characters who identified as sort of in between the binary was prostituting to help make ends meet for his household, as his father had her father had passed away from Legionnaire's disease, and so his mother struggled to make ends meet, and so she sort of did this to help with
Yeah.
that, and so it occurred during the late 70s and early 80s, which during that time, a lot of Black youth in Atlanta, Georgia were being murdered, and their bodies were being found. So there's sort of that question of the jeopardy of the Black body and the value or lack thereof, since at that time no one had been identified who was doing the murders. And there was some speculation that maybe it was the Ku Klux Klan or the police were involved or something like that. And in addition to that, I tied in elements of the Tuskegee experiment, where sharecroppers from the 1940s had been with syphilis had been observed by medical professionals to see what the course of that disease would do to their body rather than giving them treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of tied into the jeopardy of the Black body as well. And while these things were occurring far from the location of the youth in this book, they still felt that sort of jeopardy to their own bodies, and that they weren't valued, and so it follows them around while they're trying to make money and hanging out just in their day-to-day basis.
Wow. That sounds like it could be both really heavy, but when you have three friends at that age, it sounds like it could be fun too.
Yeah, it really was a fun to write, and I
Yeah.
think it's a fun read too, because although there are those very heavy elements in the background, a closer in focus on these kids, they were really still enjoying their existence and growing into their sexuality and just discovering that they were attractive to other people. So those things were the joy that existed alongside of the terror of their existence.
Okay. I did not know that was happening in Georgia in this, what was it, the 70s and 80s?
Yeah,
Did they ever
uh, they
catch?
eventually caught someone. It was a black gentleman, Wayne. Can't remember his last name now. They eventually caught him, and he's still in prison for that. But in certain black communities, there's been the discussion that he was really a scapegoat, that he wasn't really the person who was responsible for most of these deaths, particularly since black youth in the area still continue to disappear.
Oh, wow.
So there was always that question, which I did bring up as well.
Okay. How
There
about
was
that?
also, of course, what wasn't in the media at the time, the possibility that this person, this Wayne person, while he may not have been responsible, may have been grooming young boys, paying them for sex and saying he was a record producer. So there's sort of that thing which tied into the youth in this book, selling themselves to adults and whether that sort of existence
Yeah.
jeopardized their bodies.
Okay. All right. Wow. I'm going to have to look into that. That sounds
Yeah, it's very
intriguing.
riveting. There are
Yeah.
lots of podcasts and TV shows now about that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Yeah. Thanks for enlightening me. Um, so, I was reading, I've not read State of the Nation yet. I was reading about it, and the dialogue in State of the Nation has been really highly praised for being funny and for being authentic. So I'm wondering, did you base these characters on people in your life? Are they just totally made up, or did you draw from people in your life to create these characters?
Yeah, when I was younger, I knew a lot of very, very individualistic people. So I tried to draw on those memories and the African American vernacular. I tried to pull from that um, to show that while certain populations do speak with slang or not the standard English, that there's an assumption that they're not intellectual, but yet they can be. So I tried to merge that those two things while creating dialogue for them. But it sort of seemed to flow naturally because I was just pulling from memory.
Wow, that's cool. That's great. Yeah. So, do you see those characters from your youth as an adult?
Not for the most part. I think I remember when I was younger, under 21 actually. And Philadelphia had a very vibrant nightlife
So
where,
that was only a couple years ago, right, David?
yes, 5 years ago.
I thought so.
So, lots of transsexuals and other people existed in these clubs where we could go. There were after hours clubs where there was no age restriction. And so you could interact with a large array of people, a vast array of people. And so that's kind of where that came from. But I don't, yeah, I never really kept up. They were more people that I knew in passing a lot.
Yeah.
And they were a lot older. So we weren't really, connected in a long term way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's amazing how, in my younger days too, we had those after hour clubs that you used to get into, and like I don't think things like that exist anymore. Um,
No, they were awesome.
yeah, they were. They really were.
Yeah.
You're a Philadelphia guy, right?
Yes.
Do you remember Sally Starr?
I do remember Sally Star.
I ran into Sally Starr in one of those places one night, and the woman, the woman I was with, got into a fight with her.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think Oh my God, everybody was just wasted, totally wasted. But yeah.
And was Sally dressed up as Sally Star? She looked very dragged out a lot of
Oh,
times.
she did. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. I think I don't know who came first, her or Dolly Parton, but they kind of resemble each other in my mind anyway. I don't know from what I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. I need to know now what the fight was about. Was it over you?
Oh,
Did you cause it?
I hope not. I don't even recall. Like that's a really good question. I don't even recall. I'm thinking it was at the bathroom door, like the ladies' room door. So I'm thinking it had something to do with getting in line or something. I don't know. I don't know.
What club was this?
It was a club in Allentown. Yeah, I can't think of the name of it. Yeah, one of those.
I remember Wild Cherry. It was an after hours club in Philadelphia where there was no alcohol sold,
Yeah.
so everybody could get in. There was a room where they showed movies, a room where there was just dancing, a room where that was called the Snake Pit, where they showed X-rated movies, and who knows what went on in there. I
Yeah.
never went in that one, mind you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was a great space.
Oh my goodness. I know all those places like they just don't even exist anymore. Even like
Yeah.
just gay and lesbian
Even
clubs.
speakeasies are gone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there used to be clubs specifically, for gay women.
Yeah.
They just totally disappeared,
Yeah.
um, and it's a really big loss in my opinion.
Yeah.
Social media can't replace that.
No, so you're right. You're right. And even like just the regular gay dance clubs are all closing down. There are so many
Yeah,
like like the Raven. Is that still open?
I don't think so.
I
I'm
don't
not sure.
either.
I think so. Yeah,
And what was the one down the street from that? Cartwheel.
yeah,
They're closed.
they're closed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's still one up in that area,
Yeah.
or at least it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But
Sisters
most
is
of them closed
gone.
down. Yeah,
Yeah. It's all thing of past. It's unfortunate, you know?
it is.
Yeah.
Because those were the places of socializing. And for me, just going to a place where you knew you were not alone. And even the clubs that are here now, they've been co opted and a lot. I guess that was the goal, mainstreamed. And so it's not just a gay audience, but something is also lost with being mainstreamed.
I agree. I agree. There's pros and cons to both sides of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, there really is. It is a loss in that, it's not a place to go, just like a knowingly safe place anymore.
right,
Um, but it's interesting that it's uh everyone. It's not exclusive. It's so inclusive. which is really
Yeah.
what the goal is. But still,
And it now they have dress codes. What is this? You're not supposed to have a dress code when you're LGBTQ. You're supposed to be able
no.
to go in your underwear and your bra.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Oh, I did not know about the dress codes. That is not a good thing.
No.
Oh man. So so back to State of the Nation, or back to just how you write. Like you've been described as a writer who explores the intersectionality of race, disability, and class. And how did you decide upon these themes and to kind of weave them together?
I think that I think that just comes from, my existence and how I live my life, so that it's imbued in my writing for the most part. And maybe also comes with, getting a little older. When I was younger, I would write more of what I read, and a lot of times I read romance novels in my youth. So those were the sorts of things that I wrote then. But this is now trying to leave a mark about marginalized people, um, because I don't see a lot of books that focus on marginalized people.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to do that, and also show that we are just like the general population in most aspects. We love, we hurt, we want to provide for the people that we care about, and those things are common for all readers.
Yeah. Yep. We bleed. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Oh. So you have two other published novels, in addition to State of the Nation, right? So the next one I think is A Blind Eye,
Yes.
and that was also selected as for an award as the best gay fiction at the Rainbow Awards.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about that novel.
A Blind Eye uh, looks at same-sex domestic abuse and stalking.
Mm.
There is a character in there named Babe who is attempting to break up with his boyfriend, who does not want to be broken up with.
Oh.
So it's sort of following him as he navigates trying to break free from that relationship. Um, and the boyfriend is also attempting to hire someone to taking a contract out on his life. So it sounds a little bit pot boilerish, because another one of my uh, desires is to sort of merge, like the beach read books,
Uh-huh.
like Jacqueline Suzanne and Harold Robbins, those sorts of things, to merge that with literary. So I attempt to do that with A Blind Eye.
Okay.
Um, it also focuses on a mother, Elise, who is white, who has a biracial child. Elise is attempting to pass herself off as African American, so that her child's existence won't be as problematic to people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And her child is has Prader-Willi syndrome, which is a disorder where an individual has a voracious appetite to the point that they would literally eat themselves to death.
Oh.
So it's focusing on the two of them as they become homeless and are struggling to find a new place to land. And so they come into contact with Babe, who is renting out an apartment. And so the child, Ruben, then forms a relationship or a bond with Babe, because of them both being Black. And so Ruben can then sort of see himself in Babe and form his identity, and sort of relate to someone having the same race as he does.
Wow. That's another heavy duty subject matter, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's fun as well. There are it seems that most of the fun from my books seem to come from the trans characters, but there are trans characters in A Blind Eye who take us on this sort of odyssey where they're going into the city to buy drugs or to go to a Diana Ross concert, and they take these kids into the city with them, and so these children sort of see a vast array of humankind in these outings and learn a lot about the world through these characters who, while they're doing illicit things in these odysseys, are still protecting the children.
Okay. Wow. So, would you say like A Blind Eye and State of the Nation, would those be appropriate for a young adult population?
That's a difficult question that I've been asked before.
Okay. Okay.
I've been asked to present the book at a couple of private schools for junior high, and my boss actually at work asked if it was appropriate for her 14-year-old daughter. It's hard to say. The content is sobering, but I also remember, when I was 14, I was reading my mom's books. I was reading East of Eden and
Yeah.
Gone with the Wind and The Lonely Lady. So, I mean, I know I read
Yeah.
those sorts of things, but I can't for myself say whether it's appropriate. I
Yeah.
wouldn't call it young adult, though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Yeah. I remember somehow I got a hold of Valley of the Dolls. Do you remember that one?
Absolutely one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah. I was young. God.
Yeah,
I probably shouldn't have been reading that, but
that's what I'm thinking. I think I was like 14 when I read that. And
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We sometimes don't give kids enough credit for maturity, so it's hard to say.
It is true. Yeah. I expect that, there would be some young adults who would, you know, embrace it, get it, love it, and then
Yeah.
some would, maybe just giggle at some parts or something.
Well, you're right. And maybe the bigger question is probably if their parents find out they're reading it, how are they going to react? Because we think now children are watching, what's the television show? Euphoria? Is that what it's called?
Oh, there is one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's pretty, the content is spectacular, but I'm wondering how parents feel about those sorts of things. So if kids are exposed to that, these books are probably a walk in the park
Yeah.
for them.
I'm not familiar with the content of Euphoria. I'll have to check that out too.
Well, yeah, it's following around people with varying gender identities, and they're coming to terms with those identities as well as their sexuality. Very heady stuff.
Wow. Is that on what
I
network
think
is
that's
on?
HBO.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not familiar with that one. I stick to my British crime stories. So and then let's talk about your third novel, which is Unlawful Disorder, right? And
Yes.
so what is this book about?
Unlawful Disorder is sort of a love story. It's following an individual with bipolar disorder who's trying to navigate through the social service system, but since he is African American male, who also has a gambling problem, and so um, he exchanges sex for money so that he can feed his gambling problem.
Mm-hmm.
But he gets picked up by the police for that. So instead of being in treatment for his mental health struggles, he is incarcerated. And
Oh,
so he meets an older man named Eden who is trying to help him navigate into the treatment that would be helpful for him rather than being caught up in the prison industrial complex. So it's following them as they're getting to learn one another and also trying to learn how to navigate that world.
wow. Another heavy duty subject.
Yes.
So, what kind of research did you have to do for unlawful disorder?
Well, I work in the behavioral health field,
Okay.
which you know. So,
That's how we met.
right. So, I mean, I'm familiar with, these stories. I've also worked, in the mental health and the uh, differently abled fields
Hmm.
for well over 20 years. So, yeah, I've known a lot of different people who've had various challenges.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those voices all sort of come and speak to me when I'm creating that sort of story.
Okay. So, your other career outside of writing does seem to influence uh, what you're writing about.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I also, when I'm doing it, I'm hoping that I'm doing justice to the people, that I'm writing about. That came into play when I was writing about the child with Prader-Willi syndrome. I didn't want to make it into a caricature. I wanted to do these people justice,
Hmm.
especially since I know there are very few um, books that focus on that population, especially for with fiction.
Hmm.
Um, but I wanted it to read true, and I hope I've done that.
Oh, I'm sure you have. Knowing you and how precise and exact you are, I'm sure you did.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, David, how old were you when you started writing?
Probably uh, in my teens, probably 12. I know, I used to doodle and make comic books when I was a kid. And even in high school, I would write like chapters of novels and then pass it along to the kids in my homeroom, and they'd pass it to one another. And then I'd write another installment the next week. So I've done it, in that way for most of my life.
Wow, that's so cool. And your classmates liked your work and wanted
They said it
more.
was depressing as hell, but they still liked it. So yes, the topics were somber even then.
Wow, how about that? Would you say in general you're more of a sober person than a kind of fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy?
I think I mix both,
Okay. Yeah.
but I do think I'm probably in a group of friends, I'm probably the voice of reason, which is probably why I surround myself with people who are the opposite of that so that
Okay.
we can have fun, but then I try to talk them off of the ledge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
What about you? What sort are you?
Oh boy. I can be both also. I think
Yeah,
it depends on who I'm with, right?
yeah,
If
same here.
yeah, yeah, if I'm with people who, need a little livening up, I can do that. If I need
Yeah,
someone to just, be the voice of reason or bring somebody down to earth, I can do that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've always had the acerbic sense of humor, so I think that factors into the dialogue when it's being called snappy. That's probably coming up at that time.
Ah, okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. So, let me ask you this. So, you've been writing since you're 12. It's quite a while and a couple of years.
Right,
And
couple.
and so have you noticed like when you're writing does it energize you or does it seem to exhaust you?
It energizes me when I'm doing it,
Yeah.
but I do still need to motivate myself to do it because so many other things, are going on when you're trying to live your life and survive. Um, so it's just getting in front of the, computer and writing. Then I'm in my zone, but I just have to stay focused on doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That describes me exactly too. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like I am just like I swear to my wife always says I'm ADHD, and so I have to kind of be corralled and penned in
yeah,
to just sit there and do this. Otherwise, I find a bazillion things to do.
right,
But when I'm doing it, it's like, oh, cool, yeah,
right.
yeah. So,
So how long have you been writing, or how long have you wanted to write?
um, I think I've been writing for a long time. Yeah. I I wrote as a kid,
Mm,
um, and then I stopped, um, and worked on some other developmental activities.
mm.
um, and then I've probably I want to say it was around 2009. Um,
Yeah.
I met I met Radcliffe, and she was like, "Yeah, you could do this. You know, why can't you?" And
Mhm.
really encouraged me to go for it. So I just started writing again. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
You know, so
Are you currently working on anything, David? Do you have any work in progress?
I guess it depends on how you define it. I
Okay.
I started something and then I think I just stopped like a month ago. But I was talking to my a mentor today who was telling me that I need to do it every day, which is what I usually do. I try to write 3 pages a day. It doesn't matter if it's good or it's bad. What's most important is that you write and get it out there, get it finished, because then you have a direction to go in once it's completed. So I do have a topic. It's sort of a continuation of a finished piece that I'm currently shopping around. And perhaps if I get, some approval on the piece being shopped around, it would motivate me to continue the continuation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice just to sit down and write every day, you know? Um
Yeah,
it's a craft, and
right.
you don't improve your skills unless you work at your skills, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like playing basketball. Like you're not going to be a better dribbler by sitting on the bench, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's therapeutic too, even if it's if you're working on fiction, I still find it to be therapeutic.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's a good goal to do some writing every day, no matter what the volume is.
Yeah, or what kind of writing it is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, if you're, whether you're working toward a novel or, just journaling
right.
is good exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, David, that's about all the time we have for today. But I'm just wondering if you have any parting words for our listeners.
I'd like to thank all of your listeners and ask them to, run out and buy one of these books. Um, and either buy or go to your library. It's great to use our libraries. I've just, reestablished the childhood bond I had with my libraries. I'd stopped doing it and was buying everything. And then I realized, why am I doing that when our libraries need our energies as well?
Yeah.
So I'd say do that. And if any of you are writers, just write.
That's great. That's awesome. And where would people find your books? Where would they go?
They can go to barnesandnoble.com or to Amazon, or preferable to that is if you go to one of your bookstores, your independent bookstores, and ask specifically for me, David Jackson Ambrose. They can get the book in for you.
Awesome. That's great. All right. Thank you, David. And if our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, contact you, do you have like a Instagram account or Facebook, social media, anything, or how would they
I've got
contact you?
a
Okay.
website that's www.davidjacksonambrose.com. It could reach me there, or Twitter is now X, right? But I
Yeah.
my handle is DJAC.
DJAC. Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much, David, for being on the show. It has been a pleasure talking with you. And I am really eager to read State of the Nation, and all of them, really. But thanks again. Um,
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm Anita Kelly, and we were just talking with David Jackson Ambrose. So thanks for joining. Let's talk about books, baby. And until next time, may your journey be lighthearted, peace be plenty, and be safe, folks.